Peace and blessings, family. Welcome to another edition of Sunday Sitting with Sisters. I hope you got your coffee, your tea, your breakfast, whatever you got this morning, because I'm joined by some very powerful Black women, of course, across the country, New York, Arizona, Cali, of course. And we're going to talk about freedom, love, Black people, Juneteenth, Father's Day. I don't know about y'all, but I love my daddy, blessed memory. We're going to talk about the role of dads today and the family and the nation in our lives. And so let's welcome my guests. And so, of course, I'm with my co-host, Sister Dana Maisha, of All Things Literacy. And so today we are going to get this conversation started. I'm so excited. I want to introduce my guests, and I would like our guest sisters, if they could tell us a little bit about what it is that they do in the world. Who's going first? You're going to mute yourself and go first.
I'll go first.
Right on.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Good morning. And thank you, Rolanda, for inviting me to your show. I've been following your show, and I love your show. Thank you so much. My name is Monica Jones, and I am originally from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I currently live in Berkeley, California. But my adult life, I lived in Sacramento for almost 15 years. I worked for the state of California. I'm a retired correctional worker. I retired as a parole agent. And while I was working in parole, I found my passion for working with youth, and I started a nonprofit called Lights of Tomorrow in 2009. I was living in Natomas in Sacramento, so I was primarily working in the Natomas with youth in the Natomas area. When my youngest daughter graduated from Sac High, I relocated to the Bay Area because I really like living in the Bay Area. And so I continue my work with the Lights of Tomorrow, and I have programs in some of the schools in Sacramento, in Del Paso Heights at Martin Luther King. I have a mentor program with 7th and 8th grade girls. And then I do a speaker series through the Scully Schools District.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Janine Bashir. I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona. Yes, we do have Black people in Arizona. So it's something we get, right? I have been in Arizona for quite some time. I'm originally from the East Coast. I lived abroad over in Kenya for about 4 or 5 years, quite an experience. I've come back because I realized Arizona has the most beautiful sunsets in the world. I am an administrator for the state of Arizona. I focus on family programs. That's actually how I've met Rolanda. I used to work with the Birthing Project and some other programs looking at infant mortality issues. I consider myself a public health expert. Let's see, my passion are women and children. So I've ran several mentoring programs in the process of starting and launching my own nonprofit, focusing on women and children coming out of the prison system. So.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Danielle Williams-Cham. I am originally from Pittsburgh, California, Bay Area, and then spent 10 years in Sacramento, where I did a variety of policy work, but primarily faith-based community organizing, which brought me to seminary. So now I am a recent graduate with a Master's of Divinity from Union Theological Seminary in New York, which is where I'm calling from. And I'm continuing to do my faith-based organizing work. I work with congregations on how to develop social justice ministries, how to make change in their communities and neighborhoods. Previously, these past 3 years, I've been focusing on the issue of intimate partner violence and working with congregations and through Connect NYC, Connect Faith, where I interned there, and then now I just support as a volunteer, but to implement ministries that address intimate partner violence. And I'm also still continuing community organizing work, looking at the criminal justice system.
Right on there. Yeah. Welcome, sister. Dana, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm in awe by all of the women here and all of the good work that you guys do. Of course, I'm here in Sacramento with Ro, even though she's been away doing work in Louisiana. But it's been interesting here. giving a lot of support to all of the activities that's going on here. And we had a good day yesterday at the African market, where the African market was combined with a Juneteenth celebration that was organized by some other young people. And it was just a beautiful day yesterday. So I apologize if I'm a little hoarse this morning.
That's all right. We're just glad you're here with us. Today is Father's Day. So somebody posted something yesterday. They had like, it was two pictures. The first top picture was like Mother's Day. It was like all of this awesome food and fireworks. And then it was Dad, and it was like some rice with like some pieces of gravy stringing through, and then a piece of paper with a chicken wing drawn on it. And they said, this is what Father's Day get. But I don't believe that. I think if you are a great dad, you get a great Father's Day. I have a lot of friends who are doing awesome stuff for their dads this Father's Day. So if you appreciate your dad and love your dad, because I know that's not everybody's experience, I recognize that, but I do think we got to give kudos to those men in our lives who stay with their families.
Yeah.
In Louisiana, my friend, my good friend Javon, a friend of hers, his father worked in the mill and made like 94 cents a day. This is in 1972, and he ended up suing this pharmaceutical company. Or this plant that he worked at, and it really helped everybody at the end. But he said he wondered why his dad, like, I read all of the affidavits because he has all of his dad's stuff. And as I was reading through here, like I think he had like 13 kids with his wife, and like, they had lawn service. And he said, I felt like our dad worked us to death until he started reading the papers as an adult. And he realized how much his dad was making, and he really wasn't making shit. So he was like, so as they were talking, I thought to myself, I said, wow, your dad could have easily have walked away from his family. But that's not who he was. And that's not who you are. Like, you get to be this strong, vibrant man because your dad gave you such a great example of manhood. And how do you stick with your family, how you keep your family together, how you keep on making a way out of no way. And so as I was reading through the papers, because it was like the court records, and it was just like some of the most demeaning stuff ever. Like, oh my God, like, we talking Juneteenth. How you going to pay this person back for the things you did to them that you knew wasn't right? Like, this man was making $7 or something when he retired, and a teenager coming in off the street was making like $15 an hour. Like, along the way, they refused to pay this man anything that garners respect because he was a black man, even though he looked like a white man. That's a whole other story, because we're talking Louisiana. But when I think of Father's Day, I think of those type of dads. I think of my dad and his struggles. He still tried to show up and be a father, be involved, What about the men in your life on this Father's Day? Who are you big up? For me, it's my father, Rotel Wilkins Jr., became an ancestor like a year and a half ago. And I'm just so grateful, just from the beginning, the middle, and the end of our lives together, and the gifts and the lessons that he gave me. What about you all?
For me, I'll go. For me, I'm big upping my dad. I'm blessed. He's still in there. He just also turned 78 years yesterday. And so we definitely, I'm celebrating all weekend. I have interesting about my father. He was in a small town in Georgia. His family grew up that way. And so he ended up, he went to New Jersey first and then came on the West Coast and met my mom and started a family. And he provided for us and protected us. And he was the breadwinner. And the interesting thing about that is that my dad is illiterate. Like, he's a functioning illiterate. He does not know how to
Dana,
read. And I think
you're breaking up.
I push literacy so much. But
You break it up real bad. We want to hear everything you're saying about your dad.
Really?
Like, you're like choppy. Talk again.
Okay, so
There you
I don't
go.
know what I can do.
You sound okay right there. Try it now.
Am I okay?
Yeah.
Okay, where did
Tell
I
us
leave
about
off
your
at?
dad.
I'm just gonna say I'm bigging up in my dad. Okay, I'm big up in my dad, and he just took care of us. He provided for us, protected us, and you know, the interesting thing about him is that he is a functioning illiterate. He does not know how to read. And that's why I push literacy so hard. But when I think about how he was able, what he accomplished for us, you know, it's amazing. And I don't know if someone not knowing how to read can do the things that many of folks like him did back then in the 60s. So, yeah. So I'm big up in my dad. He's been there for us and love him to death.
Right on, right on. Who else bigging up their dads this morning?
Yeah, so I'm big up in my dad, Glenn Dwayne Williams. And he was definitely a provider. He was there growing up. And, you know, when I think of my dad, he loves to fish. So he'd always be on the Pittsburgh Marina out there fishing every other weekend. And he still does to this day. In quarantine, he's been quarantined at the Pittsburgh Marina. And so, you know, I just remember growing up, he would take us out to the bay, and we'd be on the boat or we'd be on the rocks, and we'd just be out there fishing. And I love to go primarily because, unlike my mom, he would always hook me up with all the snacks at the little corner store. Especially my favorite was like the Choco Stick. This is back in the day. Choco Sticks, moon pies, and hoghead cheese. I love me some hoghead cheese when I was little. And so that would be our little snack pack when we go out fishing. And, you know, I remember growing up, I think one of the things I forgot to mention is that I'm a jewelry designer you know, as well, on top of everything else that I do. But, you know, that's a creativity that I believe I get from my dad. Because I remember growing up, it doesn't matter if something happened to the floor, we never called someone, you know, outside specialist to fix it. And that was back when there was no Google. He just figured out, okay, we taking out this floor, we putting in this floor in. Oh, okay, where the air conditioning broke, let me see what we gonna do. Okay, we're gonna redo the garden or, you know, the backyard. Okay, let me see what we gonna do. And so he was always fixing everything in the home growing up. And I continue to do the same thing today. Nowadays, I log on to YouTube and be like, okay, how do I fix this? How do I do that? But I'm very much DIY. And that's one thing I get from my dad. And he's always been very, very supportive of everything that I want to do in my life, especially of the community organizing, which is, you know, it also one of the reasons why I do organize, especially around police brutality, is growing up seeing my father being profiled and hearing the stories of when he was going fishing and coming home. He had a white Bronco. That was just chance. You know what I'm saying? White Bronco. So, you know, he's getting pulled over left and right in his fishing gear. And, you know, he's a big teddy bear, but they would always, you know, call reinforcements to come and things like that. So growing up seeing that is partly also one of the reasons why I do my organizing work. So, yeah, so I'm big up in my dad, Glenn Dwayne Williams.
Danielle, you talk about fishing. That brought memories back of my grandfather. My dad actually passed when I was very young, so I don't have a lot of memories of him. But I remember my grandfather stepping in. He was a World War II vet. Had a lot of demons because of that, right? But I remember him always taking us fishing every Friday night. We get off school, we could be able to go to the 7-Eleven, get our snacks, go down to the place to fish, and we'd stay out there till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And really, he instilled, I think, that whole sense of family, and no matter how bad things may get, make sure you're with your family. And so that's what I learned from him, and that's what I take forward from those lessons.
So I'm going to give ups to my dad, Bobby Jones. And he was like the other ladies. He was an avid fisherman. I never learned how to fish. I wish I did today so I could teach it. But my brothers all learned how to do it. My father was very handy. I grew up in a community where people bartered, and on the weekends, everybody went to each other's house and helped each other with different projects. The dads did. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm not hearing any of you guys.
Now we
Okay.
can.
So my dad always had all these volumes of books in the house. And so I started reading the books that he had at a young age. And I got a love of reading from my dad. And my dad is deceased now, but he was a Korean and a World War II vet. And he migrated from the deep of Alabama. And what I regret to this day is not having the conversations with both of my parents who died. My mother died when I was 13 and my dad died when I was 20. And I never had the conversations with them about how they grew up and why they left where they did. My dad's family primarily migrated to Michigan, and he was the only one that came out to California because he was in the service. But I never had those conversations, and those are things that I regret because I know that there was a lot. I know they saw hangings and all that because I've actually taken a drive to where they were from in the deep parts of Alabama, and it was scary for me driving out there. So I just wish I had those conversations with them that I could pass on to my kids and grandkids.
Right on, right on. I wanted to also big up my nephew. So my nephew became a dad like a year ago, June 1st. And to watch him with his son is just inspiring. And it gives me an insight on the way fathers, most who are probably not ancestors in my life, how they must have felt when they had their children and watching them walk and crawl and just pouring yourself into your children. I think sometimes men who are great fathers get a bad rap because of people who are absent. But I know there are so many fathers out there. I know a lot of them who are right there with their kids and there for other people's children, who are right there showing people how to change a tire, teaching you how to walk on the planet as a man, influencing women in their behaviors with men and just other people. So on this Father's Day, did I put in the comments, if you have men in your family or in your community that you know are great dads, I want to say Mr. Frank Withrow, he's still here. He was a father figure for me at McClatchy High School. He was, and for a lot of us, he was, you know what I mean? There are people in our community standing in that gap called fatherhood. And for some people, people look for images maybe on TV, but I knew people personally that walked around that you could touch and watch them, their examples with their family and how just they respected and loved on people. So on this Father's Day, we cannot let this go by like it doesn't mean anything. It absolutely does, because we can't even get here without our dads, no matter how you feel about them. So thank y'all so much. Interesting that Father's Day is always around Juneteenth. So with that being said, how do you feel about the Juneteenth holiday? I'm so grateful that I took part in the SWLA's festival, like all the things they did. They looked at food justice and safety around your healthcare. Food. We know that food is the one thing that drives everything in our lives. It seems so minor, but it's really major, because we're going to the hospital for something. This always comes down to what we have eaten or what we are eating. You know what I mean? If you got gout, you can't eat hot stuff. If you got liver disease, you can't eat tomatoes. Like, it always comes back to what you put in your mouth and also what you allow into your mind and your psyche. So as we look at Juneteenth, which has everything to do with freedom for our ancestors that were in Galveston, who learned their freedom was over, that slavery was over, and they were free some 2 years later. How does that make you feel? And how did you reflect on that this Juneteenth holiday? I know y'all have to unmute yourself before you talk. So Juneteenth.
I'm going to say that I know that in Texas, where my mom is from, it is literally a holiday, right? People literally get the day off. And I remember celebrating Juneteenth in San Francisco, where I grew up. However, not so much in Sacramento, and I've been here for almost 20 years. And of course, I knew of it. I knew what it was about. I taught my children about it, but I like how everyone is so on board and in tune and really celebrating our freedom. And so I'm really happy about that.
Do you think that this is coming on the heels of where we are right now? Go ahead, Miss Monica.
You know what? I'm very happy for all the We Are the World, everybody embracing everybody, but I'm still a little kind of not secure in it. So I'm just kind of like watching, like I live here in Berkeley, in South Berkeley, which used to be a predominantly Black neighborhood, and it's been gentrified. And I tell people, as soon as you see the bike racks come up in your neighborhood, that's when the gentrification is coming. But anyway, so I went to a protest here in my neighborhood, and I'm still concerned about COVID. So we're wearing masks. I took one of my grandsons to go with me. So I went up there, and so it was just like hardly any of us. This used to be a Black community. It was hardly any of us. And I did end up leaving because after it got real crowded, I just was like nervous about the whole virus thing. So I, went there, let him see, and went back. But I want this to be a movement. I'm just like, I'm not secure in it yet. But I'm glad to see that, more people are open to learning about things. But, I've been in some fights, when I was in Sacramento. That's where most of my activism started, in Sacramento, in the Natoma School District, when, when they weren't even, when they were taking kids in handcuffs, young kids out of school in handcuffs and just doing a bunch of stuff. And, there was no outcry. There was no, counseling support for kids, like they have in other situations when something happens in other communities and they bring counselors in to talk to the kids. Like when Trayvon Martin died, I was like, can we have some counseling for our kids? And, none of that was happening. So I'm just kind of like, being hopeful, but just not just jumping all in to like, this is going to be a movement. I just, need to see more.
So go ahead.
I'm with you, Miss Monica. I think it's great that we've gotten a lot of publicity. I think somebody Facebooked me the other day, is like, is Facebook taking advantage of this? So we're seeing a lot of T-shirts, all these, these types of things. But what does it look like, not just on the surface? Like, how deep does this go? And is this going to really follow through? So lip service is one thing, but truly, what are the actions? So I'm with you in the sense of, this is great, and I'm glad people are open to learning. But let's see where we're at next year. Let's see where we're at throughout the year is kind of where I'm at with it. So I take it with a grain of salt, but I want to remain hopeful, but I'm skeptical.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've been celebrating Juneteenth for years, and
Me too.
Right, and it's always been a special. It's always been a special day for me. And, even in Sacramento, every year they had the Juneteenth festival and the gospel concert. And so, what I posted on my Instagram is, we may not be at the cookouts this year. We may not be at the gospel concerts or the Juneteenth shut-ins, however we've been celebrating, but I still feel our energy. And I think for me, that's what's important, is because, this is something that we have been celebrating, something we have been cherishing. And for me and the way that I raised, we're in constant reflection about our plight as our people, but the plight of our ancestors and the work that they put in to get us here. So like Juneteenth for me is kind of like all year, in the same way Black History Month is like an all year thing. And so, yes, there is like this greater outside attention that's on the holiday, and I think it's because of the current events. And so I'm trying. Who said this last night? Somebody said, "I'm worried that Juneteenth," and it's on the top of my head. I forgot who it was. It was a leader out there on the internet that basically said, "I'm worried that they're gonna Cinco de Mayo Juneteenth, to where on Juneteenth you're gonna see these."
Oh yeah, I saw that.
White kids doing bar crawls, wearing dashikis, talking about Black Lives Matter, right? And so
now that's I'm right there with you on that.
Right, and so I kind of go through this. Whatever the outside world is doing, it's always been ours, and so we have to ensure that it remains sacred to us. But we also got to demand respect to our sacred holidays, so that they are not watered down to make it palatable to white people, to a broader thing. I think it is people were saying, oh, it shouldn't be a national holiday because they're going to water it down. Only if we let them. only
if we participate in doing it too.
And only if we participate in the watering down. And so, I just go back to the power that we have and what it means for us, and how we hold it too. But, I agree with these sisters. I'm not buying a lot of the, I'm not going to use the word kumbaya because that's also disrespectful of our elders, as Iya Fumayo said the other day. But I'm not, all these corporate press statements, people saying Black Lives Matter, when your employees are on Instagram talking about how bad you treat them. It's a lot of that mess going on, right? So I think we got to be critical of that. But I also think we have the power to ensure that our sacred holidays remain sacred, even as it becomes a bit more mainstream, if you will.
Right on. I picked on here a little bit of the history of what Juneteenth means for people who don't know, because sometimes we do kind of make the assumption that people know what Juneteenth is. It's like we think all Black people live in the same reality. Juneteenth is the oldest national celebrated, commemoration of the end of slavery in the United States. And so I think that for a lot of us who don't know our Southern relatives, who don't know, because sometimes we do this thing in America, Black folks do. I'm talking just about us, because I can't talk about I don't know other people like that. I'm talking about my people. We do this thing where we are so ashamed of our history, but we don't even understand the strength that it took for our ancestors to survive any of this. We couldn't do this right now, who we are in this moment. We couldn't survive half the things that they went through. And sometimes we have the audacity to be almost just arrogant in what we want for other people to do for us that we're not willing to do for ourselves. This is a commemoration of our ancestors who were enslaved. This ain't got nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. This ain't got nothing to do with your current protest. This is about honoring your ancestors who built America for free under terror and murder and mayhem, if you will, with no respect. They weren't even seen as human beings. So this has nothing to do with the current state of where we are right now. This has everything to do with remembering the past and because that's what you're standing on. You're not really standing on how great you are. That's not what you're standing on. You're standing on your ancestors who chose to survive. If you understood the process of what it took to break a person in slavery, if you understand people being brought over here in the belly of ships and people were dying all the way. Yours and my ancestor did not die. They lived long enough to bring another generation through, another generation. So do not get this confused. This has nothing to do with our fight for equality right at this moment. It has everything to do with honoring the people who went through this hell. So we in our minds got to learn how to separate that bullshit. I'm not even thinking about Black Lives Matter when I'm thinking about Juneteenth. Those two things are not the same to me. You know what I mean? So Juneteenth is about celebrating when in southern Louisiana, which was about maybe 50, 60 miles away from Galveston, or maybe 80 miles, I'm not sure, when those fireworks was going off for Juneteenth over a harbor. In my being, I felt like, wow, ancestors, I'm remembering you. I'm honoring your sacrifice. I don't know what it's like to be in the middle of a field working from sun up to sundown, and we've been freed for 2 years and didn't nobody want to fucking tell us. I couldn't imagine what that was like. I'm up here complaining about stupid shit, honestly, that I can control. If we really want to show these people how powerful you were, take your kids out of the school and homeschool them. Be the human being that you claim you are to other people. This is a perfect opportunity for Black folks to homeschool their own kids. That means y'all gonna have to get together and get past the bullshit. But you gotta save your own children. They not gonna do it. That's like giving your kid to a snake and then wonder why they come home sick with snake bites. You threw them in the pen with the snakes. So we're talking about freedom. If you know anything about our history, right up out of slavery, Black folks was making great strides until the Ku Klux Klan and everything else, Jefferson Davis and all those fools came. But it says something about your DNA if you activate it. Because I come from a people who never relied on the people who oppressed us to free us. I'm with the Harriet Tubman clan. She didn't say wait till the harvest is over and then we're going to leave the plantation. She like, we leaving. Some of us is really waiting for white people to say, I respect you. That's not going to happen. And I don't want them to say it. I need money. I need cash. I need land. That's the honest to God truth. And if we got that tomorrow, will we know what to do with it? Because most of us don't even like touching dirt. And we're talking about the people who toiled in the dirt for America. We were commemorating them on Juneteenth. Not Black Lives Matter. No disrespect. Not what's happening to the brothers at the police. Not the hundreds of Black girls who be murdered by Black men who we refuse to talk about. We're not talking about them. We're talking about the people who built America and what is owed to their descendants. The other stuff is almost like an afterdraft. So that's Juneteenth.
Mm-hmm.
That's Juneteenth, which is over here. The other stuff with Black Lives Matter and all that other stuff, because we're like a hashtag to most people. We're like the entertainment. You know, we could clearly identify the police, but we ain't going to identify their racist neighbor. We're not going to identify the people who out there saying it, but don't want you to be their damn supervisor. We just don't want to talk about that. We just don't. And so we got to, when we see something that's commemorating our ancestors, don't wait for white folks to say it's okay. You study and teach your children. See, in the Holocaust, the Jewish people, you know, they're constantly bigging up their ancestors who were put into ovens. When they say never again, they ain't waiting for you to say never again. They saying never again, and they telling their babies, look, this is what happened to us. This could never happen again. And they're not ashamed of it. See, we have shame. It's all, even the most radical person, sometimes I see shame on them because they want to act like they're here standing on where they are right now. That's not what you're standing on. You are our blood is soaked up in America. This is ours, to me. I'm sorry. My ancestors' blood is soaked up in this soil. So you owe me something. So for Juneteenth, that means something. That means something. I don't know about y'all, but I know two of my ancestors who were enslaved in Fairfax County, Virginia. One was my great-great-grandmother, Winnie Parks, who was an enslaved African woman in Fairfax County, Virginia, and my great-grandmother, because my great-grandmother was born in 1818. And then her daughter, which is my great-grandmother, see how far back? It ain't 1,000 greats, is it? Huh. You know, and she was a baby. They in their teens when freedom came. So I can directly say, that's why I think I don't allow when people try to generic my ancestors' struggle in slavery. You're not going to generic me so that you can feel comfortable. That's not what this is about for me. Now, we could definitely talk about the protests, and I know everything looks very different. Like I was down in Louisiana, and maybe it's because it's the South, and maybe all of us should take some trips down there and stop reading shit out of books. Maybe we should go stand and look at those Confederate statues that are down there and go to a place like Jefferson County, Jefferson Davis. I just learned about him in my 20s when I was in Mississippi. And the hurricane almost blew his damn house down, which it should have just took it right off the roots. I didn't even know who this man was. We see statues everywhere. You can go in San Francisco and look at all those streets that's named for people. That's San Francisco. All the streets in downtown San Francisco is named after like a senator or a president. These people were racist as hell. So, hell, I mean, we can look at some stuff right here in our own community, but there is something about the South that we keep acting like somehow us who ran up north and ran out west, those same people, ancestors left there too. So I just feel like it will behoove us. I would think Juneteenth will make us want to go back and touch the root. For me, it does. Because I don't want people to be generic in my history. Because Negroes generic history too, because they be embarrassed by it. They'll be great to tell you how their ancestors was some white person who probably was a slave master, but would say nothing about their enslaved African ancestor, who they really are descended from. So Juneteenth is one of those things where, I don't know, I get kind of heated because I just feel like we need to know what the hell Juneteenth is, for real, and try to put yourself in the shoes of those ancestors who struggled for us to be here. I'm sitting in my living room. I make my career. Like I come up with stuff. I'm a traditionalist. I work with girls and women my whole life since I was like 18 years old. Like, this is what I've done. I don't have to scrub anybody's floors. Shit, I ain't got to scrub my own floor if I don't want to. That means something to me. I didn't mean to go off on that tangent quite like that, but I just feel like we don't really be understanding this whole Juneteenth thing. This ain't got nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. And that's just the latest hashtag. God bless it. You know, I also studied the history of the 60s. See, one of the things that concerns me the most about all the protesters is that none of these people are studying anything from the past. This is a play right out of the history book. They come in and corrupt your shit. So you busy about white people loving you and you forget to love your damn self. You so busy wanting them to accept you, you forgot to accept yourself and be your own, be yourself. What's it? Accept your own and be yourself. You know, when we gonna have some of these backdoor meetings where black folks get to sit down and be like, let's talk about the shit. I know you don't like me and I don't like you, but our enemy is much greater. In Louisiana, the brother told us a story about when he was a little boy, his principal was a black man. He was running for office. He was good friends with this white man. And then there was another white man who was also running for office. So these two white men got in a bloody beat down fight. You know what I mean? So he said, okay, I guess I can go ask this other dude, will he vote for me? Since we know that he don't like the dude that's running for mayor, who's a white dude. You know what the white dude told him? No, I'm gonna have to vote for him. Because when he looked at his overall, what was good for him as a white man, it was not the black man. It was his brother who he just got in the fight with. Now that was very telling. Because even though they had just got finished scratching these other eyeballs out, he still was going to go vote for that white man because that was in his best interest. When we going to get that message, family? When? And I think some of this stuff has to do with our own homework. Even for myself, there are people that I personally don't care for. I am going to sit down with them because that spoke to my heart. Like, I got to figure out a way to deal with this person because we are somewhat on the same team, even though it feel like we may be on opposite teams, but we're still on the same side. You understand what I'm saying? And so it's not so much about other people as we would like to think. It's about how you want to proceed. You know, if I'm having to fall out with somebody, I need to probably really sit down and talk with them and be like, this is what happened. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Because this weekend when I did some of that work in Louisiana, I heard a whole bunch of misunderstandings. That's what the hell I heard. Well, I was feeling like this, or I was in my feelings, or I thought that y'all didn't, or it appeared to me. But none of us felt like we should have just sat down and talked to each other like, what happened? Because that's what your enemy does.
Yeah, you know,
you good.
Okay.
My damn self.
One of the what was I gonna say? Oh, the connection that I do see to the protests, to Juneteenth, is that before when we engage in the fight for justice, you start with that reflection of who came before you and who paved the way and the pain that came up to this moment. And this year, because so much is going on, there's so much noise around this sacred holiday, but I also think it is an opportunity for us to get to what you're talking about how we have those inside conversations as a community to get us into formation. Because some of us have been practicing and celebrating and commemorating Juneteenth for quite a while, but there's also some Black folk to, you know, maybe they didn't really catch it until it was announced from on high, right? And so even with them, it's
you talking about the president? You talking about the president who made you famous?
Or corporations or yes, right? And so, but it's like we could be strategic and use this as an education opportunity. I also think about if they want to make Juneteenth a national holiday, make it reflective in our curriculum. Trash this curriculum in the schools that is, you know, talking about indentured servitude and, you know, all this other stuff. And that's something that we hold them to task onto. But there is a power that we have into ourselves to keep the sacredness of this holiday. And I know for me personally, I can't enter the work of organizing and advocacy without that grounding on those who paved the way for me to have the freedoms that I have today. And so that's the connection that I see. I don't see too many of like the BLM folk trying to, downplay that part. What I've observed is folks are really actually centered in that commemoration. I think maybe some of the new outside non-Black entities coming in, they come in and brush everything together because everything look alike to them. BLM, Jews, okay, it's all, you know what I'm saying? But I haven't really seen that from Black Lives Matter folks in particular. I think they honor, especially at least in the circles that I'm in, I definitely hear that commemorating what our ancestors have gone through, and even the studying of what happened in the civil rights movement, what happened in Reconstruction, what happened with the abolition movements and things like that.
What do you think is going to take for us to, where are we trying to get to? Let me just throw that. Where do you think Black folks are trying to get to? Even though I know we're not a monolith, I know we're not the same thing, all the way around. But what do you think we're trying to get to? And let me just say this. When I was in this meeting of this corporation my friend runs, she has like over 250 employees. And when I asked them how many of them owned their home, more than probably like, 2/3 of them raised their hands? In California, if I ask that question, 7 out of 10 homes in California is owned by an Asian. So that number wouldn't look the same as it look in Louisiana. So they have land. A lot of them are acquiring more land. So it may look different. In California, may be land. Down south, may be more resources in terms of money. I don't know. Where do you think Black folks are trying to get to? What does freedom really look like to us?
I think part of the challenge is that freedom looks like so many different things for so many people. Like, I think that's part of the challenge of us all coming together to unite. I think about, we are definitely like, when we talk about home ownership, right? Freedom would be me going to the bank to get a loan like everyone else does for the most part to get the home and all of that other stuff. But then data shows that for Black people, there's so many discriminations and challenges, even Black folks with the most spiffiest credit. They tried to do that to my parents when they bought their new home. I think it was maybe it was 15, 20 years ago. And Wells Fargo tried to pull a fast one on my mom. But they, and so it's like freedom is not having to deal with that. Freedom is being able to walk outside and not get accosted by the cops for some dumb stuff, just dumb stuff. Yeah. But then also, when we talk about freedom, whether it's dealing with things from home ownership, criminal justice system, education, all the inequities involved in there. But then, I also think of freedom is me walking outside and not getting catcalled, walking outside and not worried that if somebody tries to holler at me and I turn them down, will something bad happen to me? So it's there. The freedom looks so different. And I think if we could all just sit down as a people and acknowledge all of our various needs and hear each other out. Sister Rowe, you often lift up the plight of Black women and girls. What does freedom look like for Black women and girls? And why isn't that conversation as centered in the Black agenda as it should be? Now, I'm speaking broad in the Black agenda, but you get what I'm saying, though?
I get that.
So part of that conversation where he's saying us having a conversation amongst us to talk about what our needs are, what our concerns are, and to have them hard conversations. You're not treating me right. So how are we going to restore this situation? How are we going to bring healing to this situation? How are we going to agree to disagree, if you will, still maintaining each other's humanity and moving forward? I'm starting to see some of those conversations pop up. And they've been happening. I mean, well, I mean, there's a lot of books that has been written about these issues, but where are the sit-down conversations happening? And that's where I would also like to see us go. When I think of freedom, I think of two things. I think of we are changing these, getting rid of these systems, but then we are also building each other up and building our community. It's a twofold thing. You can't have a perfect system and then our stuff is not together. Like you said the other day, you can't get rid of one oppressor and then have another oppressor there. So it's a twofold walk when I think of freedom for us. And we can walk freedom at the same time.
I agree. Sister Cheryl said I would, so, and I'm gonna go to the next person. I just want to read this comment. She said, I would love to know if we can show up for Black lives when white people kill Black, but why don't we show up when Blacks kill Blacks? And that's because people like to say we don't kill each other. I've heard a lot of people say that. That does not give comfort to the person that's been murdered. I don't know why we do that. But I think that's a part of that freedom. I don't know if you could build a nation with people who can't be accountable for their own personal actions. That's why I can't think how we're going to ask white people to do it. That's just me. But somebody chime in.
Well, I think that we show up when Blacks kill Blacks, but I think that what we really need to focus on moving forward, and I've been saying this for years, and it may just be redundant, but we need to start in our own families with those at risk or whatever you want to label them, with those kids within our own family, and then expand out into the community. We have enough resources within our community to fix the things. We don't need anybody's permission. We need to start taking ownership. We are taxpayers. I watched a video that you showed of the man that came to the city council meeting, and I love him. And that's the people that I want to connect with and be behind them and support those people when they up there standing like that and calling people out instead of, I don't know if you know Matt Worthy, who goes to all the city council meetings in Sacramento. For years, he's been saying stuff and people look at him like he's a joke. But if you listen to what he's saying, everything that's going on now is what he's been saying for years. And we've been kind of looking at these people side-eyed and not wanting to step out because we don't want our white friends to feel uncomfortable.
That part.
And so we got to let go of all that and get behind the people that are doing the things that we want to see done. Get behind those people. And as far as like the monies and stuff that they're going to start saying, for this and that they're defunding the police and stuff from, we need to partner with each other and get the money and stop competing with each other for the same demographics that we're all helping the same people.
The same
work together instead of trying to have your own little segment. Because I'm gonna tell you, my organization, I will partner with anybody. And for years, I haven't been getting any grants. I've been using my own money. Thankfully, I have had the resources that I could do that and friends that have invested in me. But I haven't gotten any of those big loans that I see,
I ain't got them either.
From the city of Sacramento, from the city of whatever, but now I'm starting to see some of the good white people that I know, they're, saying, hey, I want to do this and I want to do that. We'll see if that all pans out. But we have definitely got to get behind the people that are doing the things that we want to see done and quit looking at them like, oh, they're just a troublemaker or they just whatever, label you want to put on them. That's what I think has been a hindrance to us as a Black people moving forward. When you say that, I may not like Rolanda, so I ain't going to deal with Rolanda. We got to stop all that because every other culture, they don't like each other either, but they work together.
Right on.
I can go to my store right now. I have 2 Middle Eastern owned stores on each corner. They don't even talk to each other, but I bet you what, they got each other's back when something goes down.
Believe it.
Yeah. I never see one store owner go to the other store owner, but they're connected.
Right on. Sis, I also think because studying the history helps you. I remember when I started working for the Birthing Project at the Catherine Hall Trujillo, and I remember what made her stuff so great because they looked at infant mortality and how can we lower that. That's why when I see people act like they just did some new shit, it's like, no, that's been done before. But because you refuse to recognize your history, you would like to think you did something right now. But that's a whole nother story from the time. But I remember what made that project so successful. It wasn't just all the educated degree Negroes. That's not what made it successful. What made it successful is that they relied on those people who were there at the root too. And so when you would go to a meeting, you would see all of them, not just people who were educated, not just people who went to white people and got degrees. Nothing wrong with a degree, but I don't know how you can help me when you went and got information from the people who want me to be them, and being them makes me sick. So how the hell are you going to help me? And so I feel like we forget all the resources we have within our community. So we got to make room for those people who maybe did not go to college. Maybe somebody who could only went to the 6th grade. How do we help them bring their game up? Because we have a class issue with Black people. We have a skin color issue and we have a class issue. We have the 2 C's fucking us all up. I'm just going to be honest. And so that's why you start partnering with other people. Sometimes white people help Black folks stay in the game. I can't tell you how many white people have hooked me up with shit. And Black people have been seeing me do this for years, and didn't help me at all. Some of them knew me since I was 19 and never helped me at all, never gave me a dime to send one girl anywhere to pay. None, never. So for me, it's kind of like, see, for me, it ain't even about the white people. It's about us. Our ancestors only relied on themselves. They knew white people couldn't help them. That's the beauty of Donald Trump. He makes Black folks have to deal with themselves. He like, I don't like a rich nigga. I don't like a broke nigga. All of y'all are niggas. And then, I ain't got a foot in. No, now you got to come on back down to your root, which where you should have been at, and start organizing with your people. You were supposed to get that education and bring the shit home, just like your ancestors did. I had 3 teachers in my lifetime from Alabama, from Georgia, and I think the other person was from Mississippi. They said they went off to college to get education to bring back to their communities. They were called race women of the time. So when you got education, it was to come back and help your people. They didn't get the education to leave their people and go build walls that keep the rest of us out. So freedom look like when you really see your sister and brother the way you really see yourself. So if you want nice things, they probably want nice things. If you want your kid to be happy and healthy, I love seeing Black kids be free of the bullshit. Nobody talking about their hair. Nobody talking about they busted shoes. Like nobody talking about that shit. Nobody saying you got good hair. Nobody say, oh, my baby mixed. Like free us from all that bullshit. Because that's what's got us messed up. That's why some people like, no, I can't fuck with that person. That person's color struck. That's my pet peeve. I don't do color struck Negroes. And when I start hearing the language, it's almost like that's my button. It's like, it's like, oh, hell no. I literally go the fuck off on people because you look like a damn idiot. Meanwhile, that pitch Black person got to go to the white people to get their in. That's embarrassing. That's another Black on Black shit we do that we don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sis. Jump in there.
Bishop Blunder talked about, and I'm going to keep this in with freedom. Divestment, essentially what she was describing from is divestment from white supremacist ideals that we hold on to, right? That's another element of freedom. And this is the thing. We do have the freedom to leave those values. Nobody is forcing us to uphold those values, but that takes some critical work that we have to do. And I think in particular, those of us coming from, Black middle-class families and homes, there is some reflection that we have to do around that and everybody. But how are we internalizing some of those white supremacist values, and what does that look like? Cornel West said, and I will always keep this, he said, every single day, I have to kill the white supremacist in me. Every single day. So there has to be a consciousness within us as we're, trying to change the system in the outside world. Part of the challenge in doing that is that the little white supremacists in us be coming out, pushing out colorism, looking down on lower income Black folks who may not have an education and say, well, they don't have it, they can't do that, right? And so part of that freedom is divestment from white supremacist ideals that get internalized just from us being born here. It's on the TV, it's all in our communities, it's everywhere, right? So, yeah.
So we really have to figure that out. Dorothy I. Height once said, unity does not mean uniformity. I think the beauty of Black folk is that we're so diverse, we're so different. You know, we studied the movement, we see the protests, we're out there protesting, we got that part down. But I think when we look at Dr. King and we study the movements, we understand, you know, that Malcolm and all of them at some point, SNCC had to say, okay, Dr. King, we're going to put you in the lead. So how do we create this space? It's going to look different for Ro than it's going to look for me. So how do we get to some sort of foundation? You know, what are the basic needs that we need? You know, looking at it from the sexism piece, looking at what Black men need, what Black girls need, what Black children need. You know, and so I think that's the piece that we have to explore. Everybody's going to need something different, and it's not going to be this one accord, but we can have many different things. So when we talk about freedom, and I like, Danielle, what you said, because recently I had someone ask me, you know, how does whiteness show up in your life? And I was like, whoa, that's deep. And I start going through the different categories of where whiteness shows up in my life. But I think we have to be able to, one, have that conversation with self, and then be able to come to the table with some potential solutions that hit across the board. I don't know. We're so different. We're so diverse. I think that's the challenge that we've always had. But at some point in time, just like they did in our movements, we can't just keep protesting. We got to figure out what are some commonalities to move this stuff forward.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to chime in. There was something that, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to chime in real briefly. Dana, earlier you had spoke about your dad and him being illiterate, and I know a lot of people that were in that category that were functionally illiterates. And one of the things when we're talking about treating people with human decency, in my capacity working for, you know, the government and in law enforcement and having people come into those agencies, I have seen people, because they're shamed, because they can't read or write, they can't even write their name, and not being able to tell somebody. I had to intervene one time in a lobby setting where the receptionist was like really like berating this man, you know, about signing in. And she didn't know that he was illiterate. But he, in a lobby full of people, he's not going to say, I don't know how to write my name. So we have to start treating people with human decency and not just automatically assuming things about them that because they're walking around dressed nicely or, you know, have a nice car, whatever. That doesn't mean anything if they can't write their name. And there's a lot of shame around that. And, you know, it's just, I just tried to live my life not judging people by how they look. I learned to not judge people by what is written about them, because what is written about a lot of people is really bad in law enforcement. And that's what people are operating on, what they read about people. You have to develop relationships with people, and you have to treat people. I mean, just treat people decently. I just, you know, I did police work for 25 years. I never had to shoot my gun at anybody. I never got assaulted by anybody. You know, I'm glad that I made it through that system, but I'm just saying I treated people with the respect that I wanted to be treated with. And it doesn't always work, but that's what worked for me. And, you know, I just think that just starting from a, you know, human kindness, that's a start.
Right. I think that we're all agreeing that we need to start. I think we're all agreeing that we need to start from the place of agreeing to disagree, and to stop the set tripping that we go through within our community. It seems like that's what we're all saying, because that's the basis of it, right? That's what we have to do at the basic level, and then go into figuring out what are the needs for women and girls, what are the needs for our men, and what are our collective needs, you know, educationally, our health, our finances, and things of that nature. And so to me, I feel like once we agree to disagree, right? Whether or not, oh, I don't like you. Like, to me, that's child's play, because I'm sure our ancestors, when they were building Black Wall Street, or when they were building those small towns or when they were segregated, I'm sure they all were in love with each other, but they knew that they had to survive, and they were building a legacy that we now stand on. And so we definitely need to take them that, and then we can start sitting down and making those priorities and figuring out too, separating what is systematic, what are the things that we can actually work on, you know, because there's some things that only we can do. And I like what Rolanda said when we cannot ask our oppressor to free us. We have to free ourselves. You know, somebody said on one of my posts, free your mind and your ass will follow. So yeah, it starts in our mind, and also to us doing that work, whatever work we need to do within ourselves so that we can work together for the collective build. And I'm all about that.
If you had to come up with your top 5 agenda items for Black America, what would those, take a moment, what would those top 5 things be? Because this is what I do notice. I think we're in a very pivotal time. I think that's why white people are trying to give us little shit. You know, when somebody realize they're going to have to give up everything, so they start off by giving you small shit, almost insignificant shit. We're going to take down the statue. Fuck the statue. Like, I don't really care about, we don't live with you or the statue. You are the living statue that I have to fuck with every day. So we don't care about that. But what are the top 5 things we would demand? Because I feel like Black people right now should be in a huddle, just like on Family Feud, when they be up on the board and be like, if y'all fuck this up, we're going to go over here and they're going to get a shot. We are at that moment where we're supposed to be in the huddle thinking, what are the things we need as Black people and what are we willing to stand on? In Sacramento, they're talking about defunding the police. It can't be no side deal shit. You can't be, because, you know, Black folks, see, I promise that we don't really have leaders like that. We never really had clear visual leaders, because that's not how it works in other communities. White people don't have clear leaders. That's why they ain't tripping off Donald Trump. Because their leaders are in their immediate families, in their immediate, it's immediate for them. With us, we keep thinking a leader got to be something shiny on a hill. Like, those are not leaders. Leaders don't roll like that. You are a leader. I am a leader. What should we be doing in the huddle? What should we be asking for? And when you think of your ass, think of the work that we're going to be willing to put in to sustain it. Because if they gave us 5 states tomorrow, who the hell going to guard in those 5 states? How we gonna get clean water? How we gonna get food? How we gonna get medicine? Who gonna watch Big Mama on her feet swole? Who gonna watch Little Ray Ray and them? Like, these are shit, when you govern a nation, you gotta think about security, food supply, education, healthcare. Like, what is it what would those 5 asks be? Try to give y'all some time to write that 5 down by doing my little spiel. And, you know, I always ask Black women, because this is what I know to be true. I'm not saying Black men aren't valuable, because they are. I mean, it's Father's Day, we love dads. But I ain't going front. Every time I've seen some real shit happen, it's been women. They don't care if the dude called and asked him for a date. We're going to go to a date after Sunday because I got something to do on Saturday. So what's those 5 asks? And we got some yes, Black schools, Black-owned banks, and somebody said that's so true. What we got, family? You go unmute yourself and go for what you know.
All right, I'll go ahead and go. I'm going to say, and so this is our wish list if there's no limits, correct? I'm going to go with that. So 40 acres and a mule, you still give me my land. You know, when we talk about freedom, I think that's part of it. If I have land that I can farm, land that I can live on, land that I can build a house and I have to take a mortgage out, for me, I'll take my 40 acres and a mule too. I think we need to see an overhaul of the criminal justice system. We have people in there that have committed crimes that should never have been in the system for as long as they've been in. I'm also going to say free education. I think that's a means to getting some of our economic stuff that we need to look at. And healthcare, free healthcare. You know, I think we as a nation need this piece. You know, we African Americans are affected the most when we look at the high infant mortality rates, when we look at who's got diabetes, we look at COVID-19 and how many of us are dying. We've got to fix our healthcare system. But I think that's why I say, give me my 40 acres and a mule, because then I can control my food supply. I can control how I spend my money as far as a mortgage. I can control I can control my environment. I can control my space. I can educate my children on my land. So I think it goes into all of those. So I still like this idea of giving my 40 acres in the middle.
So let me just say this. I love the 40 acres. I wish we would just upgrade to a tractor because the mule ain't gonna help us at this point. Oh, we say a tractor. I'm just being silly. I'm just being so silly. You said overhaul the crime justice system, free education, free healthcare. And what was your first one? I don't know if I wrote that down.
It was the 40 acres in the middle.
Okay, so you gave me the land, basically overhaul the criminal justice system, education, healthcare for all, free healthcare for all. What was your fifth one?
Free education. I didn't have five, but I think
okay, so you gave me four. And then Tina said reparations, education, Black education, healthcare, community programs, and Black power. Let me just say this: as we look at overhauling the criminal justice system, and I agree with that, I just think we have to come up with a real tangible plan, because letting people out also hurts the victim. So I think sometimes when we're talking about the criminal justice system, we do not consider the victims, because some of us are sitting in jail because we did some shit. So we have to have a better way of dealing with people when they break the goddamn law. Because if we don't, then it means all of us can just break the law. Then you have a lawless society. Somebody's gonna happen. You cut off my finger, I'm gonna have to cut your whole head off. Like, I don't know how we're gonna do this these days. But I feel like because we're looking at criminal justice, and I know a lot of us got our aunts and uncles and cousins and Ray and people you in love with, and they get, but if you break the law, you got to be held accountable, because accountability is the one thing that fucks our whole community up. Because at this point, it's like we ain't got none. But I love everything you said on there.
Right. So let me revise that some. I'm not talking about people that have murdered and have committed violent crimes and rape and stuff like that. But when we look at
even that should be looking at a certain way, like how do we rehabilitate that person? Like, I don't think cutting his penis off is going to help, but that we got to look at this from a different kind of way so we would still have justice in our society. Because I think we don't really do justice. We just lock people up and throw away the key. Then they be in there fucking around with other people. So we have to have a way. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I talk about that reform, it's looking at that. How do we help people that are sick and need help? Not everybody needs to be out walking around, but at the same time, we have to look at, some people don't deserve to be in there, don't need to be in there, but then some people do. And then how do we help those that need? How do we help the overall system?
Sister Deja says, yes, even the bail reform causes Black backlash. Victims were raped and killed in New York. Something like that whole, so we got to look at that. So we got to be very careful. I mean, that's why we should be in the huddle. I keep going back to the huddle, y'all. And then the dinner sister said, I want a horse or some cows, not a mule. Yeah, I'll take that. I said a tractor, but that's even better. Because we just, but anyway, who else got their five? It may match up. So let's see what we got. I'm loving this. Who's next?
I will agree with her five, but I will say until we get our own schools, take the police out of the schools.
Education. Hold on. You said police out of schools. I agree with that.
Yeah. Take the police out of schools. All the other things, I'm in agreement with the sister. And
okay, let me ask you this. I'm glad you police. How? Because here's the truth. I know it's a hard one. We do have to have some way of policing our community. So I'm not a how do I say this? I'm not against the police, but I'm not for the police the way it stands right now. Because when people when I think about those 377 Black women that were murdered by the hands of Black men, and some of them were girls as well, they couldn't even call for help. Not just from the police, but from other Black people. So we know there has to be some type of some people who do problem solving, but have some force with it just a little bit. And I think people, we look at all the fucked up shit police do, but I know when I came home one day and I thought somebody broke in my house, you know who I called? I called the goddamn police. They came out and did a home check, and my light was already off. I didn't even know that. But it would have been nice if I could have called somebody else. They came and walked through my house with me, but I couldn't call nobody.
I think there's enough resources in our community. I know, like for the state, they give people time off to come in and volunteer in the schools. If we did things like on a rotational basis, I think we would have enough. But also, what happens sometimes when you have those SROs, the police officers on campus, those are people who have had problems in the community, can't function in their job in the community, and they put them in those positions in the school to get them out of their way. So it's not always your civic minded individuals that are getting those positions. I know at least in one instance, it was a bad actor cop that was placed in the school. And that's what my fear is, because that's not good for the kids.
I don't know about you, but I remember when I was young that we had people who volunteered at the school, who kids went to the school and who were good citizens. This was back in Philadelphia, but we had so many parents that volunteered, and you had to, go through all that little kind of stuff. But I don't remember cops, but I do remember people I respected. If they say go to class and don't do that, that I would be like, yes, ma'am. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know how, because I think if you're a teacher and you hate kids, if you hate black kids, your ass shouldn't be teaching in no black school. You shouldn't be teaching no kids, period. Right. But I'm just saying, I feel like there has to be a way. And there was a time where cops walked the beat. I'm from Philadelphia. I remember the cops who walked the beat back in the 70s. We knew the person. Hey, Mr. So-and-so, blah, blah. You know what I mean? We just didn't see him when some shit went wrong. We seen him every day and we said hi to him. He knew he was from our community damn near, to be honest with you. So I think we may want to visit some of those things. And maybe some of us need to step up some more. People who talk that shit about the police, won't they go to the police academy, help us rewrite that shit and come walk your own neighborhoods? But would you be capable of doing that? Because if your ass is crooked, no matter what job you get, that part of you will show up. Whether if you're a minister, a cop, a teacher, a banker, if your ass is crooked, it's going to show up and it's going to show out. I hate to say it. I would love to see these people walk the beats like the Brown Berets in the 70s. When it was problems in New York, the Brown Berets walked those streets in New York when there was a bunch of muggings and killings going on. I ain't seen those people do that yet. They only kind of show up when there's cameras and shit and you're marching. But I have not seen them show up to places where there may be no camera. And you may have to come face to face with those gangbangers who are warring right now. And you are scared the shit out of them. You're scared of them. That's why your ass haven't walked up to their ass yet. That's why you ain't sat down with the young brothers. Back in the day, OG sat down and was like, look, young brother, you know what I mean? What's going on here? Because it really isn't about them having a job. It'll go back to some of these daddy issues and mommy issues and the crack era and not having something when you were little. So now you just gonna mess up your whole village because your shit was messed up. But somebody got to have enough courage to go in there and walk into that to the thief or to the den of lions and say something. And that's that real work. And white people not gonna do that for us, family. Newsflash. That's not their goddamn job. They really don't give a fuck. They brought you over here to work. You know what I'm saying? Now they don't need your ass no more. So we have to have a different way. That's all I'm saying. But I'm loving this. Sister DJ is saying we need a system of security in our community. Maybe a black police system. Don't laugh. But we need an organization of black cops that care. Does that even exist anymore? That's a good ass question, to be honest with you. I don't know, because some of us want to be with these people so bad we take on their characteristics. Sometimes when I'm negotiating a contract, I hate it when it's a black person because they're gonna try to cheat me out of my work. When it was a white person, they're like, "Oh my God, what do you need?" Black person like, "We could do that." Like they just cheapen my shit immediately. So I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It's the white mindset. I talked about that mindset earlier, but I feel like I'm hopeful. I think we could do it, but we have to also dismantle white thought processes. And that's the hardest part, probably. You're trying to build a nation inside of America, is that we all been infected. Yeah. That's why we got so many hair supplies that look like warehouses. Because, seriously, I love hair. Don't get it twisted. I'm about to get my hair done. You don't want to see my hair under here. But what I'm saying is we've been affected that we think we have to look a certain way, show up a certain way. I have been in places where black people tell me, you're so Afrocentric. I'm black. What do you mean? Like, you don't see white people saying to white people, oh my God, you're so white. Like, they don't say that. We will tell somebody they so black. Like, that's so ignorant. So that means you've been infected. I want to say, somebody give me some serum so I can shoot this person. And I wish it was that simple. You know what I mean? But I'm with you, Deej. Somebody said they agree with Deej. Anybody got their next 5? I'm just showing the comments.
I do. I have 5, but what I did was I took a different approach. Okay. I didn't really think about what goes on systematically. I kind of thought about things that we could do. And so one of them is, and don't laugh, but working on black male and female relationships. And I'm not talking about romantic relationships. No, I'm talking about the way women and Black men build together in the community for the betterment of the community. I think we really kind of need to work on that issue. That's number one. Number two, knowing who's. We talk about defunding the police, and I know that that doesn't mean like get rid of the police, but it does mean to take some of those funds in policing and put into community programs. But also too, if we can have just knowing who's who in the community. So if I come home and my house is vandalized, and we already know it's traumatic for some of us to even call the police, who else can we call? You know, who are those people in the community? I know that in the 70s, people would call the Black Panthers or, you know, other organizations. Number three, I think that we need to take care of our elders in a way that we don't necessarily do that now. Like, I know that there are a lot of people that do take care and honor their elders. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that we need places for our elders. When I look into my mom, God bless her soul, sometimes my dad took care of her, of course, but sometimes she had to go in a rehab facility. But we were always in facilities that were not owned and ran by us. And I think that elders should have culturally sensitive care. Because it's just a certain way that Black people move. And we shouldn't have to always, if something happens, we shouldn't have to always move or assimilate in other people's culture or how they rock in order to get the care that we need. And that's something that we can actually really do. I mean, it would take a level of unity that I think that we're all striving for, but we could do it. Number four, education of our children. Now, I'm not going to lie to y'all. I didn't homeschool my children. My last one that just graduated from high school, and I didn't homeschool my children. But what I did do was I didn't go out to the clubs and stuff like that. No disrespect to that. But I did try to teach them, you know, after school, you know, because I had to go to work. So I think that more of that and more co-opting with folks who are able to be at home. And then we got to be ready to support and fund that. Because when you're asking people to not work for a living, well, we know we still need money. So we need to be able to fund those situations if there's co-ops of people that can homeschool our children. And number five, increase the support of Black businesses, because Black businesses are the ones that can hire our youth. But also, and I'm a Black business owner, as many of you guys are, also hold those Black businesses accountable too when, you know, when we need to. So, and I say that, let me break that down. We're past the time of support a Black business. I'm Black, you're Black. We really gonna have to be competitive, and of course we won't have Walmart prices, but we need to be competitive with our services. We cannot do things. I had a sister who I love to death that called me on something. I didn't get mad. I told her thank you. And so that's something that we have to do. And I love everything what you guys said. And when you said I think Queen Monica said, take the police out of the school. We do need to replace that with a village of parents and caregivers. We do need to replace that because, as we know, the schoolhouse, some of the children don't have sound infrastructure at home. And so sometimes they act out at school. And so we are going to need some kind of firmness that will not come from the teachers or will not come from the faculty. So, yeah, I just love this conversation.
Sister Cheryl, I guess her question was for you, Monica. She said, I thought cops were in the school because these kids nowadays be coming to school, killing up their parents. And I too work for SCOE. I work at all the SCOE sites, and I do a lot of their home visits. And I have to be very honest with you. We got to make sure we provide safety to the kids who do come to school to learn. That's what I'm saying. I wish it was a real simple answer. I definitely think, because when I look at those schools, they have probation there. They have all of that there in SCOE. And I feel like, and Dana, just to back, that's why I know we have the answers. We know that some of those kids are coming from backgrounds. Some of them come from notorious ass families that we know tore the place up 20 years ago. And now they got kids 20 years later. So it's kind of like, what do we do with those children when they can't follow the rules. Some people rather take their kids and run and go somewhere else. But it's kind of like, no, we should be able in our village to deal with all of that. That's why we can't ask white people to do it.
I think there's more good kids than there are those out there doing the bad things. But also, I know I was one of those cops who was, going into people's house at 6 o'clock in the morning. The kids getting pulled up with, we going there to get somebody's parent that's did something, and the kids and everybody else being rounded up and put in the living room and, woken up out of their sleep and then sent off to school angry and mad, understandably. And then the teacher don't know what they're receiving. And that kid has an attitude. That's you don't need $1 million contract with the city, with Sacramento PD.
I get that.
And they're not going to help that kid that's coming in from that situation.
Right.
Because that kid now has an attitude towards anybody in a uniform, because all they're seeing is people with uniforms coming to their house, taking their family. Their family may be the worst person, maybe a gangbanger, may have did something wrong. I'm just saying that the kids are being subjected and being criminalized along with their parents that may not be doing the right thing. And that goes all the way to social services, a kid being taken away from removed from their family, because of CPS situations. I mean, those are the kids that are coming into these schools and not being, their needs are not being met. Police officers are not meeting their needs. There's some good cops on these campuses, but there's some that are just there just trying to get through their day because they're pissed off because they're on administrative leave and now placed in your school. You want somebody that's on administrative leave? Because administrative leave is not a good thing. That means you done did something. You want that person in your school, and that $1 million contract covers their pension, covers their car, covers their everything that goes with that officer is now being paid for through the school district. That's not right. I don't know. I can't get down with that.
Sis, I'm making a note. I think we need to have a conversation to really look at schools, because you're giving us information that most people ain't even thinking about. Because I think people don't think we have the ability to sit down and look at our kids and come up with a different plan. Because Scully is one of the few schools that you can kind of get in because they want the help. I mean, the ones I work with, but I feel like if we come up as a plan as a community to say this is what we're going to be responsible for, see, that changes the whole ball game. And they feel like they almost know we're not going to do it. Because we be like, well, y'all don't do my kids right. And it's like, you the one ain't doing your goddamn kids right. But I feel like as community, if we say, hey, this is our plan to deal with these kids, you know what I mean? Because you're absolutely right. I work with some kids who are from a somewhat a notorious family, if you will. But the girls was cool as butter. After we got through our little rough pot, they got it. They got it because they weren't able to get some of that structure because they were in a family that was a survival. But because I had some courage and because I truly love Black people, like for real, they may get on my nerves. Don't get it twisted, but I love Black folks. You know what I'm saying? But it's like after I went through that little bit of fire, now I can get their parents to get them to do anything because they know I want the best for their kids. I ain't here trying to replace you. I know that you didn't have some things, but let's not pass that on. But cops, people not gonna do that who don't care and love us for real. Right. And I mean love us.
As we talk about bringing the village into the schools, I think that's a fabulous idea. We also have to help parents change their mental model of village. Because I think a lot of times parents like, don't touch my kid and don't do this. And so then the child takes on that persona. So I grew up where if you got in trouble, everybody on the block beat your butt and then told your mama about it. And I couldn't understand it when I was a kid, but I'm thankful for them old women that used to get in my tail, Miss Copeland, Miss Clayton, Miss Perkins, that would call my mama. And so we have to change our mental model that about, if we're talking about bringing in the village, then we also have to change what that looks like for everyone in their heads. Right on.
Before we get to the next person, Sister Deja, she kept coming. She said, I'm just so worried about my sisters. Over 300 killed this year. Actually, we're close to 400. The last number was 377 alone. I'm talking about the hands of people who look like them, mainly in domestic violence disputes, but also been some Black men who killed their Black daughter right there in Stockton. What can we do to solve the beast within our communities? What's worse is the police. What's worse, the police or the predator that we live with? What ideas do we have for this? And sis, that's near and dear to my heart because, you know, we be getting killed like the young sister activist that was sexually assaulted and the guy gave her a ride and raped and murdered her. We didn't even talk about that. And this was a woman that was a Black Lives activist. She was out there protesting and was murdered, and we didn't, nobody said nothing, you know, or somebody did. That's how I heard about it. But I'm just saying, it's like we got to deal with that beast within. You know, it's like we're at two wars, one in the inside, one on the outside. But the one in the inside, if you conquer that one, you can almost defeat the one on the outside. But how do we get to that part? So that is definitely something we should have an agenda. Go ahead, Danielle.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, and I'll touch that when I talk on my the key points. I agree with all the points everybody brought up. Definitely hands down reparations. We talk about whether it's the mule, tractor, car, whatever, reparations. Okay, we could get to them details. I also agree with healthcare is like free healthcare for all. It's a major situation. Like every other day, I'm thinking about health in some form or fashion. And you know, and I say this with a caveat because the question is what would the Black agenda be, right? So the other thing is, so when we make demands for money to be pumped into all these systems that help us, we also got to be honest about how these systems also fail us. So I'm also challenging myself to think a little deeper. Like, so when we talk about healthcare, free healthcare for all, but when doctors believe that Black women can carry more pain than the average, and therefore they don't need to assist them, and our infant mortality rate and mother mortality rate is so high. Okay, so then there's some other asks that we need to add, you know, to include in there to make sure that these systems actually work for us. So yes, invest and then have some more detailed asks to make sure those systems work for us. But I agree on healthcare, and I even think we need to look at most recently what's been happening with COVID-19. There's an article that said that New York's Black community has a hole in it. You know, you're talking about 30,000 people died in like a month and a half. The majority of them Black and Latino. And so, it's as a result of a lot of health inequities. And so that's just something to think about. Education. Okay, this is my own interest here. Free education and scratch all them loans. Scratch all them loans, forgive all the loans. And free education again. The systems of education doesn't always service even if it is free. So I'm trying to think of what are some more asks. Definitely investments in Black business. Investments in Black business. And here's another caveat where I'm challenging myself with that as well. Because under a capitalistic system, you will always have a bare bones minimum wage that does not account for the real life bills that people have. And not everyone is going to own a business. And those Black businesses are going to hire people, most likely other Black people. And if they're hiring other Black people at this minimum wage that doesn't meet your actual needs, is that really the progress that we need? So yes, invest in Black business, but we got to look at this capitalist system. Maybe it's pushing a livable wage, maybe reimagining what this capitalist system could be. Because are we going to reinvent the system, but just have more Black corporations, but still a class of Black folks who are still being paid minimum wage? So that's the other thing that I'm thinking about. So when we talk about criminal justice reform, I think this is a good conversation. You know, we talk about the abolition of the prison system, the abolition of policing. I think of this long-term goal. When I think about some of the incidences in community where police came out, and it's a situation where it could have been handled by community members or practitioners in in a particular field like mental health, or I don't know, maybe community members who can do conflict resolution. I mean, that's a piece we need to that's a conversation right there. So, you know, when we talk about divestment from law enforcement, it's really looking at what are the roles that they do that maybe they really should not be doing, especially when they check in on folks with mental health. They often end up dead, especially in Sacramento. A lot of the officer-involved shootings in Sacramento were around mental health. So that's another thing when we think of abolition. Also, when you think of these community investments that we know can already reduce some of the crime, right? Or a reduced incentive to commit crimes. And so that's what some of those investments do. I also think, and I agree with Sister Rowe, we really do have to center the needs of victims when we talk about these situations and really explore what is the experience of victims with law enforcement. And, you know, sometimes law enforcement is not helpful. I mean, look at the sisters who, what's her name? I think her last name is Alexander in Florida, where her husband was starting to beat her, and she
I can't remember her name.
Yes, and she fired that shot, and she was arrested. And so, and I think even when those who talk about police reform, I think sometimes this is an area that's overlooked because we think about how, you know, how on the streets people are profiled, but we don't look at the challenges that exist when it comes to intimate partner violence or even sexual assault, and how law enforcement fails survivors even then. How Black women at times are not seen as victims because we're aggressors. Right? I mean, that's a whole nother piece to it. But I do think that we have to have this real conversation about the harm that is happening in our communities. I think Brittany Cooper shared the stat. It was every 21 hours a Black woman is killed by a Black man. And so, you know, when I think about what can be done about that situation, you know, there's a bunch of systematic asks, right? And then it's some heart-to-heart conversations we need to have in our community. Sister Dana, you talked about having this community conversation about the relationship between Black men and women. And immediately what popped into my mind is having a community conversation about what does it look like when all Black lives matter? Who are the marginalized groups within the Black community that we sometimes leave behind ourselves? I'm not talking about white folks. I'm talking about who do we not value in our community? And what is stopping us from valuing these other Black lives? And so we really got to iron that out. And that's a huge piece of that. Okay, now that we've got that there, and the question about what is stopping us, what are some beliefs, what are some ideas, what are some religious beliefs? Because that's a whole nother thing.
Now you're going into something else.
That's a whole nother thing. The religion that okay, that's a side topic, but it's also a piece to it. I could go on for days, but that's a piece to why we don't value all Black lives. So we talking about Black women, Black girls, low income Black people, our LGBTQ community. So what does it look like to value all Black lives? That's one conversation. The other conversation is, you know, the one thing I appreciated about working at Connect NYC when I interned there the other year, Brother Q, he has these monthly meetings with men, and these meetings include men who are survivors of violence, men who have participated in harming their spouses, and men who are like, I ain't abusing nobody, but I know I got bias against women and I just need a safe space to talk and learn about it. And he has these conversations with men, and they're learning and they're growing together. Ever since COVID-19 happened, he's been doing two weekly calls, Wednesdays and Friday nights. And part of that is, you know, when quarantine happened, that's really when the numbers started to go up, right? I mean, it was just an exacerbation. And so it was like, okay, how do we imagine if we had community services to where the brothers that do harm, and not by force of court. And I think this program shows that brothers will go even without being forced by the court. They can go to a brother who could say, hey, you have these things going on. Let's talk about it. Let's see, how can you process your emotions in a more healthy way? How can you see the value and honor the life of your loved one? How can you do this differently? Okay, and I'm gonna walk with you as you go through this. We're gonna hold to account. And so, you know, we don't have a lot of that. We don't. And I think that's some of the work that's going to be needed, because people aren't just going to pop up the next day and say, oh, I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore. Like, it's going to have to be work. And so when I think of where there's abolition, defunding the police and things like that, that's what I'm thinking about, what those services, what those strategies look like. And I'm still learning and growing and evolving, because even after you work with folks, there's still folks who may harm. And so I think we really do need to sit in that as a community. And as we talk about police reform and abolition, and we need to marinate on that and have some conversations and really think of some solutions, you know, on this issue of the 300 sisters, 300 plus, who've been killed since January.
Yep.
And how are we going to address that as a community? And you know, that's where I'm coming from on that.
So let me say, we had a couple of comments. Ia Colette said, and the conversation that we have is imperative that we welcome sacred space for everyone at the table, not just the so-called experts. Our dear sister, I think she's in New York, says, yes, we have to look within. And she said something that was very key, because sometimes we read I call it the politically correct line, where Black folks get mushed in with everybody else and Black women get mushed in with everybody else. But she said our disabled women, we don't even think about women who are disabled. We don't think about our young girls who have no protection. You know, our elderly, our single women, no protection. Almost they get blamed for being single women or single mothers or whatever. And then the lesbian, because I hear us protect trans women, but we do not protect lesbian women. See, stuff like that, you know, because misogyny still exists, even if it's in a dress. Let's just be honest.
Right.
The list goes on. So they're all marginalized groups. And I only say that because somehow we have participated in patriarchy. Women have, like it can't even survive without us. It just can't. So that means we really have to look at who we make and who we set values to. You know what I mean? And I watch Black women do that. Like when I posted that thing yesterday about Black women fighting 2 wars, and some brothers jumped on. First, I argued with them. I was like, why am I arguing? Because I was stuck in the airport. Why am I arguing with these damn idiots? So, but also, you know, they went on to their whole thing. And even one sister came in, I had to come for her. I don't care who your damn daddy is. Your statement was out of pocket. But then 2 of my homeboys shared it on their page, and they said, brothers, we got to do better. Then one guy said, if you're a man and you're disagreeing with this statement, that means you're the problem. So to hear Black men talk to other Black men, that's power. That means that they get it. Those are my brothers who get me. They ain't gonna say my reality ain't real because they don't see it. You know, just because you sitting in the snow, Danielle, and I'm not, don't mean your reality ain't real because I'm not sitting in the snow. You know, so I feel like we gotta really put that on the agenda. But I do think if we set off, I think there should almost be 2 agendas. The Black agenda that we all agree to, whatever that may look like. And some of y'all stuff is exactly the same. They can almost blend into each other. The other part is for all of us to do our own work. Because if we do the work to correct that whiteness in us or that supremacist in us as it pertains to white people, then we be all right. Because all the other stuff we'll figure out. You don't like me, I ain't got to shop at your store. You hate my kids, I'm gonna figure another way to educate my kid. That's what our ancestors did. They was like, white people don't want us, we create our own world. You know, but you know, they don't want us over here, we won't go over there. Hell, what you got, I need. You know what I mean? We forgot that we had the power to do that. That's why I mean, we got to go back and look at our ancestors' story and gather up some of that courage and wisdom they had. Though they had nothing materially, what they did have was skill. They had skill and they believed in themselves. And I'm going to be honest, they believed in their God, whatever it is that they believed. I don't care if they was in church in the morning and throwing bones at night. I don't really care. But they believed in something that allowed them to build something in the midst of being under the most oppressive devil we've ever seen in our lifetime. Because I don't think we see them right now. I think we see the descendants of them. But I don't think they are to the degree to which our ancestors were under slavery. Straight up. But they are definitely using some of the tactics. Don't get it twisted. These people got volumes of playbooks. But so do we. So do we. We come from people who survived this. So we definitely got some wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. We could definitely talk to our ancestors and be like, which way should we be going now? What did y'all do? And they will reveal it to you. This is what you should be doing. This is one way you can do. You got some dirt in the backyard, plant some shit. They will. I'm so serious. I think sometimes we forget the power of who we are and who's in our bloodline. I think we forget that. We are from people who survived. Y'all, we are the strongest of the strongest of the strongest of the strongest. Ain't nothing weak about our DNA. I don't know how to explain this shit, but there's nothing weak about us, but we just got to get that shit in. And excuse me for cussing. Sometimes I just get so like, I'll say those words because it's like with black folks, you got to say it almost with a sting because then we'll get it. But if I say, we just have to rely on, you'll be like, we sleep right now. We snoring, bro. But you know how you say that's like in the military, they call out those right flank. They don't be like right flank. Left flank. Like it works up your spirit. That's why in church, black people tend to shout. Don't get it twisted. I like going to the black churches. I like seeing us release that energy of all we happen to be under bullshit. And you can sing as loud as you want right now. You can shout and ain't nobody gonna make you sit down. Like I think we totally forget that. So as we're pulling together this agenda, I agree with everything y'all said. I feel like the black agenda should come from the black people, not some figurehead that's working with the government. Not some figurehead that like going to lunch with the powers to be. Not those Negroes. They almost have to be busted out like these Negroes are standing out here by their goddamn self. We are together as a unit. You have to come talk to us. You cannot be our representative and you ain't talk to me. I personally think the one thing we should add is everybody should be able to own one house. If you're paying rent and you're paying over $1,000 a month, that should go towards a down payment for you buying where you live. If you want people to feel like they're an American, help them buy their homes. Because when people own the land that they're in, there's an ownership in that, and you show up differently. Because now you know where those tax dollars are coming from. This is your neighborhood. You're not a squatter. Your equity don't go to somebody else who won't fix the shit up in your house. You fix the stuff up in your house. I just think home ownership is the way. I don't want no more affordable housing. Ain't shit affordable about this housing in California. No goddamn way. I don't know how it is. But it's too goddamn expensive. But we ain't even in no big city. We ain't even in Frisco. We in Cowtown, Sacramento. I don't know how rent get to be $2,000 a month for some decent shit. Like that's when you like, okay, now y'all don't all lost y'all goddamn mind. For real. So I think that ownership piece got to be on there. It's like you have to own where you sit. This is yours. We just got to. We just got to do it. We just got to do it. So anyway, what's y'all wrap up? We done got it in, family. Give me your wrap up. And I enjoyed all of y'all. I mean, everybody is chiming in, y'all. I love this the Black Agenda piece. We're going to have to look at that, Dana. Because I took some notes. Yeah. I don't know about anybody else, but I took some notes.
Me too. I took some notes too, sis. I just want to say, I'm sorry. Let me just say in my wrap up, I want to say that I really enjoyed Sunday Sitting with Sisters this morning. And I appreciate all of your comments and the thoughtful insight that you all have into building our community and really seizing the moment, because we are in a moment right now. Like I feel it, and I know it's been a build up and people been building, but I don't know. It's just something about this moment that's hitting different. I don't know what it is. I want to say that today, there's going to be a meeting at the African Marketplace in the Obama Room from 3 to 5 p.m. And they're going to be discussing some of these issues. So if you're in Sacramento, 3 o'clock at the Obama Room, there is going to be a discussion. And I want to say that I hope that we could have a part 2 of this discussion here, Ro, because I really like this.
Right on. Right on.
So that's all I have to say, and I hope you guys have a great Father's Day and a good Sunday.
Yeah. Oh, I just want to chime in and say, great conversation. I agree. We need to continue the conversation. And one of the things that I don't want to see with all that's going on, I do feel that there's a different vibe out there, but I don't want to see money's being poured in, because what's happening in law enforcement, they want to save more money. Their reform is like, let's collect data. But who are they going to pay to collect data? It's not nobody that looks like us. We have professionals within our ranks that we need to be the ones doing our data collection, doing our storytelling. We don't need no white sociologists or social scientists to come in and do an expert analysis on us. Right. So we need to, if they come at us with that, no. If they come at us with creating a new agency to oversee our reparations that we may not see, but my grandchildren may see, no, just give me my check and don't worry about what I do with my check. If I want to go mess it up, right now you have Native Americans that are getting over $10,000 a month. I don't know if they call it reparations, but I know that they're getting checks. We can get the checks the same way.
Right on. Go ahead.
Let's just not let them come in and take over our destiny and what we want to do. Now is our time. If we do it right, that we can be in control of our own destiny.
Right on.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to build off of, for my final words, Sis Rolanda, what you touched upon is that this Black agenda is not going to be pushed, by some representative in a suit up at Washington Hill, but I think this time, when I was organizing, there was at Faith in Action, there is a phrase that they use: those who are closest to the pain should be at the forefront of the solution.
Right on.
Look at those who are the most marginalized in our community, that those should be the voices that are centered in the creation and the advocacy of the Black agenda. And so, this idea of one Black leader or the representative, like when we do the Black agenda, scratch that. It's a group of us. We're doing this together. Well, they call it, this is going to be a democratic process in the Black community that centers the most marginalized voices in the Black community. And that's the way to go in creating a Black agenda. So that's my piece.
Right on.
Sister Ro, I love when you talk about we have to remember who came before us and that we are the strongest of the strongest. And if we stand on that, we can move this. This has to be, as they used to say back in the day, FUBU, for us, by us. And we have to stick to that. And it's not just the educated. We're going to need them over there to help us get to where we need to be. So I look forward. I thank you for this opportunity. And I really look forward to making some movement. Things are shifting and we got to do it. We got to do it for our those that come next after us.
Queen Mother Iacole said, look at all the great information that comes from women sitting down together and sharing their knowledge and opinions. We must do more of this across the country. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. Sister Monica, I just want to say there's two things that's happening. One thing is this big thing around Measure U. I'm only saying this because you're in Sacramento. This big thing around Measure U, you should be at that table. That's around defunding the police and what to do with some of that money. That's around like Measure U and that whole thing. You should be at the table. The other thing is that the mayor is going to be doing some meetings, and I need you to get with me after this is over. And this is a community roundtables on systematic reform. So he's calling certain people to the table on this. And I got an invite, but I'm one of those people. When I get an invite, I only take people with me who have insight. I want Negroes I want Black people who get it. Like, it just can't be me because, you like me or, you know, I'm cool and I talk a lot of shit. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I do a lot of stuff too, but I want to take people who absolutely, like when you gave that background, that example, being there is very different than somebody in a suit who've never been there, who never did a home visit, who never been in somebody's house, who don't understand it like that. You know what I mean? It's different. You should be at those tables because you get it. And we should not feel some kind of way that you should be at the table and I'm not at the table because maybe that's not my lane. Or maybe I'm supposed to back you up at the table and not you backing me up because I'm not even supposed to be at the damn table. I got invited there because of a circumstance. You understand what I'm saying? We got to be able to do that with each other. That's what that's where my head is. It's like, okay, I got invited to these meetings. I'm going to do whatever, but I'm definitely going with some other people. And we have to be willing to have those conversations with each other. Because I'm going to be honest, in this town, we have a divide between black men and black women. The part of that divide is religion. It's when black men think somehow they are closer to God and they deserve to be the spokesperson. It don't work that way. You know, it's gotta be a mixture. It can't be the sister you like because her hair is in place and she wears nice suits and she's cute. You know, we gotta kill that shit as black people. So you need to make sure all of us is at the table. Don't be having all the brothers and y'all trying to do a side deal. No, we gotta expose that and bust your ass out. We gotta do something different because what I remember from the women I grew up with, who was a part of those movements in the 60s and 70s, they talked about being oppressed by black men. They said it was one thing to fight the white man. That was one thing. We all could agree to him. We know him. We see him. What we don't want to talk about is that black man who feel like you should be the floor and he should be the ceiling based on some damn religious bullshit that somebody wrote in the book. I'm just going to be honest. And so now we have to dismantle that. We have to dismantle that because that's killing us. You don't know. You don't carry the babies. We do. You don't give birth. That's why we're not quick to kill a person. Men are quick to kill because they don't carry life. They just add their sperm. We got everything else. They do 10%. We do 90%. And getting human beings here. So that means you need to listen like that, maybe. Maybe you should just sit for 10 minutes and listen for 90. If you're going to take this message there. And the whole world knows that. They see who's running stuff. Who you think started all this movement to marching? Wasn't no black men. It was black women in the street because they can feel the pain of loss. Oh man, my phone is tripping. But anyway, I just feel like And as we wrap this up, we got to look at that, family. You know, we got to be, and we love our brothers. It's Father's Day. My God, I love my dad. I love the men in my life. But I also need those brothers who know better when they're in the groups with men like that. Check them brothers and be like, you don't get to cut them out of shit. You don't get to ask me to be a part of your bullshit. You don't get to do that. Black women, you know we are here on the strength of a woman. You know that. It don't make you look weak as a man. It makes you look strong as a man because that makes you righteous. You know that. If you got a plan going on and there ain't no real women in the room, not the women who you like because they make good hot dog sandwiches and shit, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about them black women that you know gets it in. You need to say something and be like, no, y'all, you know this is not right. Don't form the good old boy networks and then when you get busted, blame it on white supremacy. No. It's not right. Don't do it. Stop it. Straight up. We're in a pivotal time. We should be in the huddle. We should be in the huddle thinking about that next move because your enemies, your opposition, they've been in the huddle for 400 years. That's why they still standing. They constantly in the goddamn huddle. What do we give these Negroes to keep them sitting down? They're constantly in huddles. That's why they come and say, do you live in this neighborhood? That came out of the huddle. The right that they feel like they can ask you, why are you standing on the sidewalk? It's like, are you crazy? So y'all, in closing, this was a great discussion. I couldn't think of nothing to go with the hot dogs, but you know how black folks, we always feeding you. When there's a great movement, there is going to be some sisters making something. I don't care if it's a salad or some tuna fish. I don't know what the hell, but I ain't lying. But we got to challenge each other because we need each other. We are not going to make it without each other. It's just not going down like that. So with that, family, Thank you for joining us on Sunday Sit with Sisters. You sisters, hold on, don't hang up yet. Let me just close this out. And we are on our way out of here. Have a great Father's Day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hold on, sisters. Hold on.
Just wait.
Oh, that's okay. He all right. Hey, baby. I'm just closing. That's all right. I love it. That's what you do as a woman. Your babies hang all off you. That's what's up. Hold on.